Well, the holiday season can get quite busy for all of us, myself included, and so I have missed 2 days in a row. But oh well, there's plenty to talk about. I don't know whether to talk about Dr. Kissinger or the situation with Venezuela. I think that Kissinger's probably, I guess I'll pick him because the situation with Guyana is developing. I have plenty of time to talk about it. The referendum, I think, is Saturday in Venezuela. So let's just stick to old Uncle Henry. That is Dr. Henry Kissinger. A great villain in American history and world history. I mean, where do you even start with him? I'm not going to give a biography of the guy. That's stupid. You can read a biography of him on Wikipedia for all I care. Sure, most places are going to be praising Dr. Kissinger, but plenty of people. He's a big enough figure. Folks recognize the evil. It's out there if you want to know it. I don't need to get into details. What you need to know is that he was an architect of the current world order. He is one of the chief sentinels of the American empire. He was a co-founder of the Bilderberg Group. He was one of the great global elites who was exercising his authority over the rest of the planet until the day he died. Yesterday, I believe. At least it was announced yesterday, late last night. And so is he the most evil person? Not necessarily. But he's one of the highest ranking evil people in the world. He was just as complicit as anyone. Were it not for Henry Kissinger, would the world be a substantially better place? Frankly, I wonder, because I think if it weren't him, it would have been someone else. There were plenty of other people. The incentives were there. The means were there. The motive was there. He just happened to be someone who was born into the right circumstances, who wedged himself into the right situations. I don't think that he was the architect of the modern American empire, but he was certainly a key figure. He was one of many. He also played a great role in the rise of China, as he was a Nixonian, or he was part of Nixon's, not cabinet, but he was right up there with Mr. Nixon. So when Nixon went to China, Kissinger was behind a lot of that. Actually, wait, was Kissinger in the cabinet at one point? Was he Secretary of State? I don't even remember at this point. He wore so many hats throughout his life. Honestly, I don't care about the individual titles. I don't care to give the man a title. He doesn't deserve any titles. He's ultimately a man who thought he was fit to rule the world, not alone, but in concert with his fellow academic experts. And like so many of the wizards of smart who came before him, who thought they were fit to rule the world, he left a trail of bodies in his wake. Untold hundreds of thousands, if not millions, perished. All in the name of feeding Dr. Kissinger's ambitions. But if you asked him, it was never his own ambitions. He wasn't someone who saw himself as a Napoleon, let's say, to use a relevant topical comparison. Kissinger was more of a Rasputin or a Merlin. Kissinger always wanted to be the power behind the throne. He wanted to be the Wizard of Oz, pulling the strings from the shadows. And obviously, when you think of concepts and groups like Bilderberg, that's exactly what you think of. Kissinger was all about the permanent power elite and ensuring that whoever the face of world domination was ultimately a puppet of him and his friends. He believed that by assembling a committee of unelected billionaires and technocrats from around the world and organizing them through NGOs and conferences, secret and public, that collectively they could pull the strings in all of the important countries and control all of the important governments by staffing all of the high-level advisory positions and essentially being the brains behind every successful politician. And so in a sense, I admire what he was able to achieve, even though the results were evil. But I think one could pursue the same strategy in the name of righteousness. And not just the name of righteousness, in actual righteousness. You could carve out a righteous path. You don't have to infiltrate the governments of the world and fill them full of people who believe in doing terrible things, of people who don't value human life, of people who believe that might makes right. But, as is so often the case, the dark side is more of the easy path to power. And so by crushing your enemies, Dr. Kissinger and his acolytes, I think they were able to achieve success within their lifetimes that under normal circumstances would have taken centuries. Ultimately, Dr. Kissinger's life embodied the idea articulated by George Carlin through the phrase, "It's a big club and you're not in it." For most of his life, Henry Kissinger was the president of that big club, and he most certainly was never going to let you into it. And he had no qualms about terminating the life of anyone who stood in his way. He never thought in terms of individuals either. The only individual people who he valued on this earth were those who he could use, were those who he thought would be valuable players in his network. And so sure, you can go through individual examples of countries like Cambodia that were turned upside down, that were laid to ruin at the hands of Dr. Kissinger. People are sharing the Anthony Bourdain quote quite a bit today, and I think that's accurate. That's reason enough to hate Henry Kissinger, but it's an oversimplification to simply think of him as the butcher of Cambodia. He was that, and he was so much more. He was so much worse than just the butcher of Cambodia. And his legacy will continue to live on. That's the worst thing. A lot of people are celebrating, they're even posting the old dancing crab meme, yay, Henry Kissinger's dead. It's just like when John McCain died. Well, sadly, Kissinger's legacy will live on. The organizations he founded, the culture he created, his acolytes, who he surrounded himself with, who he curated personally, they will carry on his work. Communism did not die with Marx, and I don't even know what you call Kissinger's ideology. He didn't have any. His ideology was power. There's no real reason behind it. I guess you would just call it technocratic bureaucracy. Who knows? Global elite domination, democratic subversion, deep statism. Either way, that is the evil that we must defeat. Sure, Kissinger himself is in hell, but there's countless more who are yet to join him. And they're growing in number all the time, constantly trying to recruit more people to their circles. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.